Hey Adventures! Today is kind of a fun video for us. It's probably going to be pretty short, but we're going to see how it goes. And that is what our favorite, top 5 favorite
opening
lines. Correct.
So, the first book for me is Romanov by Nadine Brandes, and the opening line is, "My blood is my crime." This isn't part of the first chapter, it's part of what's called a side, and then the next page the first chapter starts. So, I think that's a really, really fantastic opening line.
My first, and this is kind of one of those books that everybody is like, oh, this has such an amazing first line, and that is Moby Dick. So you probably already know what the opening line is, but it's "Call me Ishmael." I don't know, it's just such a unique way to open a story, and from that title you kind of get a sense of what the story is going to be like, just a little bit.
And the whole book is renowned partially because of that line. If you think on the Barnes & Noble gift bags, "Call me Ishmael" is one of those lines that's printed on it. Which
That's at least understandable.
Okay, so my next favorite line is from A Tale of Two Cities. "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going to direct heaven, we were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of the noisiest authorities insisted on its being received, for good or for evil, in the superlative degree of comparison only." So this is a very long opening line. It's an entire paragraph. This is the first sentence. And what I love about this is at the end of the book, you can tell how important this first line was. It fits in with the book so well. That's part of why I love the opening line. Plus, it's just really beautifully worded.
So my next is definitely a more recent read, but I really like how Brandon Sanderson decided to open this book. So technically, this isn't the first chapter, this is the prologue, it's not the first chapter, it's the prologue, but it's also not the first line in the story. The first line in the story comes in the prelude, but I don't like that one, so I'm skipping to the prologue. And the opening line for that, once you get past the thingy that's written before the chapter, or before the prologue begins, is "This son Balano, truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king." It sets the stage for this first chapter, but it also sets the stage for the rest of the series and how the rest of the series, and what it's kind of the cause of the rest of the series, and it's very interesting, and I actually really like how he did it. Plus, you get a feel for the world through it, and that's always a good thing.
So this next book for me is Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. "It is the first day of November, and so, today, someone will die." This was the very first thing I read when I received this book. I hadn't read the synopsis, and I loved it. I thought it was a great entry, and even though the book wasn't a perfect book and it wasn't a great fit for me personally, I do think the opening line is really, really great.
My next is another Brandon Sanderson, and this is actually from the Hero of Ages in the Mistborn series. The Mistborn series I've read more times actually than the Lord of the Rings series, which we won't get into why that is, but I have. And so the Hero of Ages is book 2, and so I kind of don't like doing this because it's not really the first line in the series, but it's also a very good line and very interesting, and that is, "Marsh struggled to kill himself." Once you know who Marsh is and where he is, especially in this book, that line is so much more powerful and so much more interesting and dark in a way than you would think. I mean, it's a dark line as it is, but once you know the context, it's even darker.
I do think the context is very important for that specific opening line.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't read the Mistborn books, please don't characterize them by that opening line.
Yes.
Because there's so much more to it than that.
They're very, very good books.
So my next book is The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I know we've talked about Percy Jackson a lot recently as I'm rereading this. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. So this is just a perfect example of Rick Riordan's writing style, and part of why Percy Jackson is so enjoyable to read because the writing style is very whimsical and very much from a young boy's perspective, and I think it's really fun.
Alright, let's see, my next is from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So this, we've both read this for the first time in...
Philosopher's Stone.
Excuse me, the Philosopher's Stone. I call it the Sorcerer's Stone because for some reason they decided to print that as the title
got an American
for the
publishing.
American. So, anyways, someday I'll get a Philosopher's Stone, which is the correct way to read it in my opinion.
There we go.
But we read the Harry Potter series for the first time last winter, and we really enjoyed it. And so we binge read the series, and that was an amazing way to read the series. But the first line is very interesting, and it sets the tone for the characters that are introduced. And I don't know, it's just fun. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. I just feel like that's a great way to introduce you to those characters, especially as you go through the series and learn how they really are.
And they influence the main character so much, which is very important when reading that first chapter.
Yes.
So that was a pretty cool way to open a whole entire book series, even though it wasn't on more of a wide level like Percy Jackson. Tony and I were talking about this a minute ago, is that opening line, "Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood," characterizes the whole 2 Percy Jackson series.
Yeah.
It's a really fantastic way to open the whole Percy Jackson world.
It also kind of characterizes Kane Chronicles and the Chase, whatever, the Norse mythology ones.
Yeah.
I don't remember what those are called, but they're all kind of in that same vein, and he did a really good job with that.
Right. So, my last opening line in book is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, another one of our favorite books. If you haven't read this, I would highly recommend it.
It's technically the first 2 lines, just FYI.
The monster showed up just after midnight, as they do. I just really like that. That is so perfect for starting off this book. And it's also very interesting because the monster has so many more layers to him than we anticipate when first opening the book.
Yeah, we have a whole review to it. Go check it out. It was one of our first videos that we ever did, so it's not great. These ones still aren't great, but we talk about our thoughts on it, and it's a very interesting book. And if, like Kate said, if you haven't read it yet, please do so because it's that amazing.
And speaking of lines in a book, I remember when we were filming the book review, and we just wanted to read paragraph after paragraph out of the book. Yeah. Because it's so well written, just very well written. Alright,
my last, and quite possibly my favorite opening line of all time, although you kind of need the whole paragraph for it. But that comes from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Of course, Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit had to be on this list somewhere. But the line is, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." Of course, it goes on to talk about what type of hole that is and everything, and it's just, Tolkien sets the stage for such an amazing story with the lightheartedness, but also the depth that is involved in this series and this book specifically, even though it was intended for children. It's just, I don't know, Tolkien has just such a way with words that I just can't help loving it. So, that is our list of our top 5, each of our top 5 favorite lines. I'm sure there's others that we've forgotten, but those are 5 that we absolutely love.
This is another video that I'm excited to readdress, to come back to in several years since we've got some more books under our belts.
Yeah.
I know I see books, as I was looking for a few to use, I was flipping through some first lines of books and I realized, man, I need to reread this book and I need to reread this book. But the problem is, I can't be I would spend all of my life rereading books. Yeah. Because 1, I don't retain information, and 2, they're so great. So, we'll see as we add new books to our favorites, what comes out of this.
And sometimes, even though a book becomes our favorite, the first line isn't always the greatest. Yeah. But sometimes it is, and sometimes, as in the case of Scorpio Races for Kate, you don't necessarily like the book, but the first line is amazing. Right. It's completely random how, I don't know, it's just, first lines can make or break a book in many ways.
Okay, enough rambling, we're both rambling.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.
We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and comment down below. If you have any favorite opening lines, let us know what they are. Follow us on Instagram if you haven't already, and thanks for watching, guys. Stay warm.